Broadcast has been set.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the September 6, 2022 fiscal years 2024 through 2029 Capital Improvement Program, CIP, public hearing. Before we begin, I would like to ask everyone to turn off any wireless communication devices to avoid technical interference with our meeting. Also, we will have Spanish interpretation services available this evening. Ms. Linares, would you please make an announcement that Spanish interpretation is available by clicking on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen?
Buenas tardes. La interpretación de esta reunión se llevará a cabo en vía español utilizando el enlace que aparece en la parte de su pantalla. Es un globo. Pueden colocar la interpretación español. Si están utilizando una tableta o su celular, pueden ir a los iconos de su celular y ahí va a aparecer la interpretación español. Gracias.
Gracias and thank you. For those who are not able to observe now, this meeting is being recorded and information will be on our board webpage and available on the PGCPS YouTube page. The Board of Education has convened this evening for the sole purpose of receiving public comment on the fiscal years 2024 through 2029 CIP public hearing. The Board of Education appreciates your participation in the CIP process. With the public's involvement, we aim to meet the needs of our students and staff in Prince George's County Public Schools in a collaborative manner. Now we will have the roll call. Ms. Ellis, please call the roll.
Yes.
Vamos a llamar.
Good evening, everyone.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Mrs. Adam Stafford,
Señora Ada Stafford,
Ms. Boozer Struther,
Here.
señora Mrs. Struthers,
Mr. Cerrone Ruiz,
Here.
señor Cerón Ruiz,
Dr. Harris,
Dr. Harris,
Mrs. LaSalle Frazier,
señora Lasaya Frazier,
Here.
Mrs. Mickens Murray,
Here.
señora Mrs. Mockenberry,
Dr. Z. Miller,
Dr.
Here.
Mr. Murray,
Señor Murray,
Mr. Thomas,
señor Thomas,
Mr. Valentine,
señor
Here.
Valentine,
Present.
Mrs. Williams,
señora Williams
Present.
Dr. Miller.
Here,
y doctora Miller, presente.
We have 8 in attendance.
Tenemos
Thank
8
you.
tendencia grave.
colleagues, I will now yield the floor to Dr. Mark Fawcett, our Chief Operating Officer, for his comments and presentation.
Good evening, Dr. Miller.
Good
Wow.
evening, Mr. Fawcett, Dr. Fawcett.
The other esteemed board members, tonight on behalf of Dr. Golson, Dr. Golson and the Capital Improvement Team would like to open for public comment for the CIP for fiscal years 24 to 29. We presented this CIP as a first reader on August 18th. Subsequently, we presented to the OBAFA committee on August 24th. And tonight we will open up the floor for public comment before presenting this to the full board on this Thursday, September 8th. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to the Director of Capital Programs, Mr. Sean Matlock, and he will give the presentation tonight before we receive public comment.
Thank you, Dr. Fawcett. Thank you, board members. If the board office would put up our presentation. Thank you very much. So this is the proposed FY24 CIP. We're going to present this in 3 phases. First, our accomplishments from the previous year, the final adopted FY23 CIP, so people know what's funded through this next year, and then what we're going to be doing through the request for the FY24 capital budget. Would you move on to the next slide, please? So what did we do last year? What are our measures? Next slide, please. So the capital department did a lot in FY22. We had 42 projects that were finished and occupied and in use for substantial completion. We had 68 projects that were 100% closed and are off the books for final completion. We had 129 projects with capital funds that are in construction this past summer. And we had 6 projects receive design or award approval from the state. Next slide, please. So these are some of the highlights. So over 132 awards were made for design or construction services this year. Over 148 million of capital dollars were spent this year, and it's probably going to be over 150. This was before we closed out all the books. And of that, most of that money was spent on projects. So over 60 change orders occurred that were processed and approved this year. And change orders are when you make a change to a contract, either for additional scope of work or for a change in the amount of money that you're going to use on the project. 12.09% of our change orders were due to agency mandates. That's either DPI or WSSC or DOE required a change to a project usually due to a change in the code or something like that. We had 27.47% of our COs were due to unforeseen or poor conditions existing in the building. That's unforeseen conditions that we encountered during construction. About less than 1% average change order rate this year. So there's a national average of 4%. We were negative 1% to that national average. And then there are 26.4% of our process change orders, roughly 858,000 were credits back to PGCPS. Next slide, please. So continuing with the highlights, we had 68 completed projects as stated earlier, 17 systemic HVAC replacements, 11 gymnasium upgrades, 11 generator installations, 7 elevator installations, 3 asbestos abatement projects, 2 classroom renovations, 2 ADA bathroom conversions, 2 roof replacements, 2 parking lot repavements, and 1 replacement school. Next slide, please. So highlights of our 126 summer projects were, we had 27 systemic HVAC replacements, 18 code corrections, 9 hazardous material abatement projects, 8 kitchen projects, 8 parking lot projects, 8 playground replacements, and 1 classroom renovations. These are just some of the projects we did. We did many more. Next slide, please. So we had a number of major projects in construction during FY22. We just started Suitland High School modernization. We just completed Cherokee Lane Elementary School replacement facility. William Wirt Middle School replacement is currently in construction. New Glenridge Area Middle School is currently in construction. Andrew Jackson Middle School is about 95% complete. Stephen Decatur is about 95% complete, and those are renovations and additions. Robert Goddard Montessori HVAC upgrade is substantially complete. And Chilham Elementary School pod conversion is substantially complete. Next slide, please. So we had a number of major projects that are part of the ACF, which is our P3 project. That's New Adelphi Area Middle School, Walker Mill Middle School, Kenmore Middle School, Drew Freeman Middle School, Hyattsville Middle School, and the new Potomac area K-8, which is going to be called Colin Powell Academy. They are all, just about all of them are just about to close in, and they're moving steadily along. Most of the projects, 5 of the projects are actually ahead of schedule. Next slide, please. So major projects in design, we have the new Northern Area High School, which will be where the old Cherokee Lane Elementary School was. High Point High School modernization is in design. William Schmidt Outdoor Education Center, which should be in design and construction procurement. We just completed, we've gotten our money for the state for that. Pool Springs renovation, which is in design procurement. James Madison Middle School HVAC upgrade, which is construction should be starting in 2022. And Lamont Elementary HVAC upgrade, which is a construction document development. Next slide, please. So these are what we did by the numbers, basically a percentage of budget. As you can see, the large amount of money that was spent on summer projects was in systemic upgrades, roughly 22%, and code corrections, which is about 21%. And then next followed by building repairs. The rest of the projects are a smaller percentage of the overall spend, but you can see where the money's going. Most of it's into systemic upgrades. Next slide, please. So what was funded for FY23? So we finally got our approved budget in June of 2022, and it was uploaded in July of 2022. So let's go into the FY23 budget. Next slide, please. So just to give you an overview of how we're funded, we start with our educational master plan in May. We draft the capital budget in August. That's then submitted to the board and everybody in late August, early September. Then that capital improvement plan is then approved, moved on to the local and state budget process. The county gets it, and then the IAC gets it. They then go through their budget process, and that runs from roughly from October to June, and that's when they approve our budget, and then we start implementing in July. Next slide, please. So as you can see, our historic requests in FY23, we requested $51 million from the state, and $113 million was approved. We requested $215 million from the county, and $138 million was approved, for roughly $251 million in approved funding. Next slide, please. So the approved state and county funds include $102 million for William Wirt Middle School replacement, New Glenridge Area Middle School, Suitland High School modernization, and William Schmidt modernization. Approved in state and county funds for systemics included $63 million for H. Winship Wheatley HVAC upgrade, Charles Flower roof replacement, Phyllis E. Williams EC HVAC upgrade, the CTE Southern Hub standalone, and the Riverdale Hills in design ECC. Next slide, please. Over $43 million was approved in funds for various other projects like code compliance updates, HVAC upgrades, kitchen and food service projects, major repairs, playgrounds, parking lots, stage renovations, security upgrades, and stadium upgrades. Next slide, please. So now we're getting to the FY24 budget, and this is what we're actually requesting for this year. And if you go to the next slide, please. So we recommended an FY24 CIP request of $241 million. That's a total of county CIP funding request of $151 million, a total state CIP funding request of $61 million, and a total state HSFF grant request of $29 million. The HSFF grant is the Healthy Schools Grant. It's money that's made available for HVAC projects, roof projects, and of that nature, and some security projects. And that's pretty much that's money that we're using to supplement our budget. Major projects proposed in FY24 CIP include $136 million for 3 new schools or modernizations of existing schools, $46 million in countywide or county-only funded projects, but not limited to code compliance, mandate projects, major life cycle replacements, projects, and stadium upgrades, and $25 million in ACF P3 funding. Next slide, please. $39 million in roof replacements and boiler and chiller replacements at existing schools and facilities via the HSFF grant funding. $11 million in stage renovations to modernize Cycle 1 approved schools. $4 million in major repairs at existing schools. $4 million in mechanical HVAC upgrades at existing schools. $4 million in compliance mandates. $3.5 million in stadium upgrades, and $3 million in central garage and transportation upgrades. The $39 million is a little different from the $29 million because we have matching funds of $10 million that that will be added to the HSFF $29 million. Next slide, please. As you can see, this is our major breakdown by projects. As you can see, for FY24, Suitland High School Complex will be requesting $48 million in state funding. We'll have $66 million in county funding. For Cool Springs renovations, we have $9 million in state funding and $8.8 million in county funding. And for the new Northern High School, we have $4 million for work with our design teams there. Next slide, please. Woodridge Elementary School HVAC replacement, we're going to request $3.6 million in state funding and $1.3 million in county funding. We have the Healthy Schools Facility Fund, the HSFF projects. As you can see there, there's 10 roof replacements in there for roughly $27 million between the state and the county. 2 window replacement projects, which are about $1.3 million between state and county funding. 4 boiler replacement projects, which is roughly $6 million between state and county funding, and 10 chiller replacement projects, which are roughly about $4.5 million between state and county funding, roughly. Next slide, please. Alternative school construction, we have the schools that are currently in construction. This is going to be money that's going to be paid out for those projects, and that's $15 million in county-only funding. And then for phase 2, which is a next set of schools that we're working on for the administrative and procurement costs and towards building those schools, it's another $9.5 million. Next slide. So we're also have some shortfall funding, requesting $4.5 million in shortfall funding for open space pod projects and systemic replacement projects. These are projects that money that we need to close out because they had shortfalls in the projects. We had stage renovations that we're getting ready to start. There's roughly $10.7 million for Longfields Elementary School and $700,000 for Calverton Elementary School. Stage renovations are projects where we renovate the buildings, and they're our third part of our major project schedule. We'll have roughly 6 schools that'll be going on stage renovations over the next few years. Next slide. So we have compliance mandate projects. So we have roughly about 800. If you look at the one line, that's what the total request is going to be over the next 5 years. And the individual request is on your far right. So roughly for this year, we're going to be asking for $800,000 for asbestos abatement, $1 million for ADA upgrades, $500,000 for bird fuel tank replacements. Code corrections are $1.7 million, and lead remediation is $100,000. Next slide, please. Again, the same applies here. You'll see that over the next 5 years, it's a much larger request than what you for 5 years. And then you have your request. Plumbing upgrades, HVAC and plumbing upgrades is $4 million for next year. $3 million for the central garage transportation department improvements. $1.5 million for kitchen and food service upgrades. Nothing for land acquisition. $5 million for major repairs and life cycle replacements. $750,000 for parking lots and driveways. $1 million for planning and design. Playgrounds, $400,000. Roof replacements, $2 million. Security upgrades, 1.5, stadiums, 3.5, and standalone classrooms, which are basically temporary or in some cases permanent modular structures that we use to augment programming and or population shifts. That's $4 million. Next slide, please. So our total state funding request is $90 million. Our total county funding request is $151 million. For a total of $241 million in requested funding. Next slide, please. These are our next steps. So we go to second reader on September 22nd. Then we're trying to get the submission to the IAC in the county by October 4th. By October 16th, we'd like the submission to the IAC for comprehensive maintenance plan. We have November 2nd, the governor announces the FY 23 capital budget, 24 capital budget. In December, we had the IAC approve 75% of that capital budget. The county government has a public hearing on the budget in January. In February, the IAC approved 90% of the capital budget. By March, the county government public hearing for a budget. In April, we'll have state legislation adopts the final budget. The IAC approves the projects in FY 23 CIP. And by May, the county approves the final budget and the IAC releases adopted CIP. And that is the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matlock. Colleagues, we will now hear from the community. Therefore, board members will not address any comments now. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. At the sound of the buzzer, you may complete that sentence only. You may not relinquish any part of your speaking time to another registered or unregistered individual. You are encouraged to use titles rather than names. For example, board member, CEO, executive director. Your adherence to these guidelines will enable the public comment process to move smoothly. Our first registered speaker for this evening is Mayana Pearson, individual from Kenilworth Elementary School building. Is Ms. Pearson here? Is Ms. Pearson in the queue?
I don't see Ms. Pearson in the queue.
Hi, good evening. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Pearson?
Hi, yes, this is Ms. Pearson. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. You
Yes,
can
thank you for
proceed.
allowing me to speak to the, okay, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak to the panel. I was just calling with a question regarding how a particular school can be added to I guess the availability to be able to be funded for repairs. I am a PG County resident. My daughter goes to Kenilworth Elementary School in Bowie, Maryland. And I was reviewing the last report that was submitted, and based off of the condition of the building and the facilities, they were listed as like severely poor, like the poorest condition of a building through the county. And so I also noted that they were not involved or listed on your new list of buildings considered to be repaired or replaced. And so I just wanted to see what I could do as a concerned parent to have them placed on a list to have the facility itself repaired in some manner to where it's manageable, as well as the condition of the playground. I did see that there were some repairs done based off of an investigation that was done by the news when the report was kind of submitted last year, or at the end of the school year last year. But again, it's still my concern if the building is still not up to standard or up to par based off of, the presentation that we want for our students. And so I just wanted to, check to see who I can contact and what I can do as a parent to make sure that the condition of Kenilworth Elementary School is, I guess, to get the repairs needed for the facility. I'm grateful for the repairs that are being done to Suitland and all the other facilities in the county, because our students deserve the best. However, at Kenilworth is still highly in a state of disrepair. So wanted to see how I can get my daughter's school of Kenilworth Elementary on the list, and who I should reach out to get them the funding needed in order to get that project going.
Dr. Fawcett or Mr. Matlock, would you like to address that?
Madam Chair,
Okay.
Madam Chair, excuse me.
Yes.
This is to hear public comments only.
Oh,
Yeah, I was going to reiterate, we are logging the questions and we will respond when appropriate.
oh, you are logging them in. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Pearson. And someone from the CE's office staff will contact you with a response to your questions. Thank you for
Okay, thank you for,
attending.
thank you
Next,
for your time.
you're welcome. Next is Delvin Champagne, ADA Accessibility at Door Kennedy French Immersion. Delvin Champagne, is he in the queue?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello,
You
thank
may-
you. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for your time. My name is Delvin Champagne. I'm a parent. I'm a former legislative committee member for Dora Kennedy French Immersion School in Greenbelt. I have correspondence from the previous attorney, Ms. Tobias, where it states that that Dora Kennedy was in queue for an ADA upgrade for in fiscal year 2022. We haven't heard anything about that. My wife and I are both occupational therapists, licensed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And our facility cannot accommodate IEP students or 504 for wheelchair accessibility because previously when we because the building was transferred to us from the old Greenbelt Middle School, and we can't access wheelchairs aren't accessible to like third and fourth and second and third level. That's one. In 2020, our school was deemed on a priority list for renovations in the for capital improvement, and also our before and after care vendor, Sandbridge Learning Center, since last year has not been able to get approved through for inspections to even have. So all last year we had no before or after care, and this year it's still on hold because they can't get past inspections. And so, and lastly, we have a backlog of projects that we need to be addressed from the when we were transferred our building from the old Greenbelt Middle School. But the priority two, or number one, is definitely getting approval for the inspection for before and after care. And also, can someone check to just verify? I have the email, I sent it in my public testimony from the email from the previous attorney, Mr. Bias, where she noted that Dora Kennedy was slated for funding in the fiscal year 22 budget CIP. And I can tell you exactly what it's called. Give me 30 seconds. I'll tell you exactly what it's called. It was a program that, oh my God, I can't find it right now. I mean, anyway, it was 30 seconds. I'll tell you right now exactly what it's called. It's called, it was in the, it was called, oh man, it was called the EFMP, the Educational Facilities Master Plan. And we were slated funding in that proposal in FEA 2022. This email is from 2020. And so we haven't heard anything back regarding our funding for the ADA wheelchair accessibility, and also currently for the Sandbridge Learning Academy inspection for before and after care. Thank you guys for your time. You guys have a great day. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mrs.
French
Champagne.
Immersion. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And someone will get to you as well to address your concerns. Next, Mr. Joseph Jakuta, Climate Parents of Prince George's, citing of Climate Action Plan in CIP proposal.
Mr. Jakuta is not in the queue, Dr. Miller. We do have the Honorable Denny Tavares as an attendee. I didn't know if you want to give recognition to her or pull her over.
Sure, would she like to speak?
Yes.
Please cue her in then. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Councilwoman. How are you?
Hi, Chairwoman Miller. Good to see you.
Good
I
to
just
see
want
you.
to say thank you to everyone. As you know, I'm a regular at these CIP meetings. I treat it like church, but I want to say that I am very thankful for everything that was presented. I think the world of Mr. Matlock and all the good work that he has done over these years. I don't feel we could have possibly gotten as far as we have without him in terms of the progress we've made with the P3 and just the general upkeep and maintenance of a lot of our buildings. And as you know, we did create the educational master plan, and that has been the Bible so that we can truly depoliticize school construction. So I applaud Superintendent Golson and everyone involved, including the council on this. However, I feel that particularly with the new Adelphi Middle School, we have a lost opportunity. I don't think that the structure of the committee put together reflected what needed to happen given the technological gap of the vast majority of the population that is served in those schools. And a lot of those meetings were recorded, and you can see that there was an animus against diversity and inclusion in terms of truly reflecting the needs of these children that will be attending these schools. And this, I am sad to say that I believe there was a great mistake made to not take this opportunity to name the school after a Latino, given that the majority, over 90% of the school will be Latino. We know this for a fact. And to lose the opportunity to name and create a role model, the only role model that these children can look up to, is concerning because no one identifies in this community with Cesar Chavez. So to have 220 schools constructed on which no one identifies, and in a population where only 3% of the population is college educated, these children do not see Latino professionals from kindergarten or pre-kindergarten through college, if they go to college. And that should be highly concerning to us all. So to me, to not reopen the vote, to have it be as I was promised, that Sonia Sotomayor, if it was a number two, as long as there were two names, a Latino name, that would be selected, to me is highly egregious and a negative on behalf of the children that we serve. I feel strongly about this. And I just feel that in addition to that, we want to be able to talk about addressing, some minor needs at Ridgecrest in terms of the playgrounds and such. I thank for the work at the Chillum Elementary School, but I do feel strongly that we need to reopen the vote for the naming of the new Adelphi Middle School in order to reflect the population that is served. Not only for that, but Cool Springs and the new Northern Area High School. It has to be at the center of the Latino community because that's where it's going to resonate the most. If we start looking at Riverdale and some of these other schools, yes, we can do that there too, but it sends a message that we are about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Not to do that, I think, is an affront to this community. And already we see much of an affront with the losses in leadership that we've had at all levels of government and the attacks that we've received in these latest elections.
Thank you, Councilwoman Tavares.
I would like to hear a
We can't hear you. You've muted yourself.
I just wanted to ask why we are not able to reopen this vote so that we can reconsider and correct this egregious wrong to this community.
Your question will be addressed by the CEO. This is just a hearing session tonight, and your questions and concerns have been recorded and will be relayed to her. And you should expect a response in the near future from her in reference to your concerns.
Well, the response I received today was also equally concerning. So I'm very saddened by, as somebody who's been a stalwart supporter of this administration under Ms. Golson. I was very taken aback by the response that I received today. And I'm frankly, I'll say that I'm disappointed.
Thank you again for your comments, Councilwoman Tavares. And I'm sure that Dr. Golson will address those concerns with you. There are 2 written comments that have been posted to board docs for your review. Elizabeth Hirschbach, Prince George's County Public Schools parent, inclusion of climate action plan in the EFMP, and Sandra Weinstein, PGCPS school nurse, building considerations for health suites. Thank you for your comments, everyone who participated tonight. This concludes this evening's public comment. The Board of Education is scheduled to approve final submission of the 2024-2029 CIP at its September 22nd, 2022 board meeting that will begin at 7 p.m. I will accept the motion to adjourn this evening's public hearing.
So move.
Dr. Fawcett had his hand raised, Dr. Miller.
Yes,
Dr.
Dr. Fawcett.
Dr. Miller, you actually covered it. In my introduction to the presentation tonight, I accidentally spoke and said that it would be presented on this Thursday, and you did correct it, and it was corrected in the presentation. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, this concludes the September 6th, 2022 FY 2024 through 2029 CIP public hearing. Thank you and have a good night.
Dr. Miller, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I did not hear a second.
Oh,
I second it. Go ahead.
And the
Thank-
vote, all ayes or nays?
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Hi, Mia. I was trying to switch with my team, but I don't know why we couldn't, she couldn't see me. I can't hear you.
I moved you guys to the top so both of you can see each other. I don't know why she didn't see you.
Did you see me though?
I saw you. Yeah, I saw you waving
Okay.
at her and everything.
Thank you.
I did see you.
I'm not sure what that was. I was texting, I was emailing. If you don't mind, just will you relay that to Linda and just let her know I was here?
Oh, absolutely. Wait, who's Linda?
Oh, the PI, the interpreting agency.
Oh, okay. We work with Dr. Love, Dr. Jennifer Love.
Yes, Miss. I was communicating with her too.
Okay, but I did tell her that you were here,
Thank
that you came in as an attendee and I slid you over, so she was aware.
Yes, thank you. You did. And then I just couldn't get my team's attention to switch. So I emailed her, said I would switch with her at 6:30, and then it just the meeting kept going and she wouldn't. I don't know if
Okay.
She couldn't see me or if
I don't know why, because I saw her, she was waving at you. I mean, you were
Oh.
waving at her.
right.
And a couple of times I saw her, but I didn't know if she was signing, but I saw you.
Well, I kept saying interpreter switch, switch, like hey, and then I was like,
Okay.
I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah, I will
That was
vouch for you if needed.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Thank you for all your help.
Sure. All right.